Good morning, everybody. My name is Jared O'Leary. I've been drumming since 1998, and I still got plenty of stuff to work on. In these practice streams, I like to share what I'm practicing and how I'm practicing while I answer some questions. Think of it kind of like office hours, if anyone's interested in asking questions. There's almost 500 streams of me practicing the drums, whether it's the tenor drums, the snare drums, or drum kit, working on limb-independent stuff. In all of these, there are timestamps in the description to show what I was practicing or what I was talking about. Because I've been drumming for almost 30 years, and because I have a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in music education, people ask me questions about how to get better as a performer or how to get better as an educator, and I will often edit those answers and put it into this drumming tips playlist that has over 16 hours of drumming Q&A inside of here. Over 100 videos, with the first thing being whatever is the title. So for example, tips for teaching young drummers, or why tenor drummers use French grip, etc. But if it says and other drumming tips or and other teaching tips, that means there's more topics in there. So if you're not interested in the title, you might be interested in some of the other topics in there that are unrelated to that. Now, on my channel's home tab, you're going to find literally over 2,000 free drumming play-alongs and drumming videos like these drumming tips and lessons, etc. If you see any of the 600-ish videos that say members first, they're all scheduled to release for free, I promise. It just might be literally a year and a half from now, because, you know, there's like 600 of them, and I release at least one a day. But if you see one of these, it will come out for free. But if you want that early access, you can go to any one of the videos and then just click the join button, and it's literally 99 cents. That's the cheapest I can make it on YouTube. But that's how you can get that early access, or just wait. I promise it's coming out for free. So I don't sell a course, I don't sell a book, I don't sell an app, I don't teach privately anymore. I just collaborate with Shia LaBeouf, that's a joke, to create free content. Shia is here to help motivate me to practice. We're going to hide him because of copyright. Shia, I want to work on my roll timing. Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it. Make your dreams come true. Just do it. Some people dream success. Well, you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it. Just do it. Yes, you can. Just do it. Hello. If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. You will find thousands of free exercises and drumming resources, but it's a little hard to kind of navigate through it all. You have to click on each one of the headers to actually show you what's in all of them. Links to here, jaredoleary.com/drum. It's linked up here. This is where you can find all of the thousands of free resources organized neater than what I can do on YouTube. So for example, under the chop section, here's 80 chop exercises organized into different playlists and whatnot. Like this one has 29 shopping sprees in it with more to come. There's over 1,000 grid variations here, 419 for triplet, 577 for 16th note, and 36 of them for wacky stuff like Herta grid or tap-only grid, etc. There's also limb-independent stuff. Every one of these playlists links to this video as the second video, how to develop limb independence on the drum kit. And you can see how I did that yesterday when I was practicing on the drum kit. But there's a ton of resources in here to help out with that. If you do marching bass drum, I highly recommend checking out this section. There's a bunch of exercises, almost 500. Mark time to these, and then once you get these down, then you can start doing the wackier stuff like all these splits variations. They're super helpful for practicing. But focus on these first. Cadences, there's a bunch of these in score format, so you can see all the parts. There's also over 200 sight reading exercises, over 400 technique exercises, and then over 16 hours of drumming tips in just this playlist alone, as well as all these different like scripted lessons like the how to hold traditional grip or like the pad reviews, etc. if you're interested in it. You've been drumming for around a year? Do I have any advice on which genre? I wouldn't really focus on a genre as much as I would just say, like, experiment. So try different stuff. So I personally like to play a lot of Latin jazz stuff. But if you like do drum covers of like metal songs, but try and like, what would happen if a funk artist were to play this on drum kit? What would happen if a country drummer would play this, or whatever? Just think of like different styles and try that. But what I'd really recommend if you want to take your drumming to the next level is to take a look at the limb independent stuff, which you can find here. Check out the steps in here and use these free resources and whatnot to help out with it. It's difficult, but it is totally worth it to be able to do it. Now, today, I'm going to be working on roll timing. I'm going into the technique section. By the way, since you do metal, what I'd highly recommend is checking out this endurance and speed playlist. Do that with your feet. There's a lot of cool exercises inside of there that you can work on with timestamps, so you can go slow or you can go fast, depending on what you're working on. But anyways, I'm going to work on roll timing. There's a bunch of exercises in this roll timing playlist inside of here. This is under the technique section. I'm just going to do the very basic one. And I tried this 2 days ago and the internet crashed. So fingers crossed it doesn't do that again. I was like midway through playing a rep of it, and then all of a sudden it's like, you have no internet for a few hours. Thanks. In the timestamps of all these thousands of free play alongs, you can go to whatever BPM you want. I want to start at 40, and I'm just going to go one click at a time. This will allow me to really refine my playing to make it so I can get better with my technique and sound quality. Even though I've been doing this for almost 30 years, still got stuff to practice. Here we go. Why is that moving? Want nice, relaxed, controlled motion while playing this triplet roll. Now I'm going to play the same rhythm, but invert the sticking. So a single right followed by roll. Right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, 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 right, right, left, right, right, left, right, left. 2 counts of each. Same thing, inverted. I almost slipped out of my hand there. Okay, so a normal roll, if you're playing this, you're just going to go right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, okay? But for an inverted roll, you start with a single right hand, or left hand if you do it off the left, and then you do a roll. So it's not a tap roll where there's like a space in the time with it. It's the same rhythm that ends with a double right at the end, as opposed to like a tap roll or something like that. Over-exaggerated the amount of space in there. Hopefully you get the idea, okay? So this, same rhythm as this, but there's that single right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, all the way to here where you go right, and then right again, okay? Then you do 2 counts of a normal roll, 2 counts of the inverted roll, 1 count of a normal, another count of a normal, 1 count of an inverted, 1 count of an inverted. And then you do 4 counts of a normal roll into 4 counts of an inverted roll. Why would you work on inverted rolls? It has to do with the name of this exercise, roll timing. So specifically focusing on the timing of the second note of the diddle. So you don't want to have a roll that sounds like this, where the second note is weak. You can't really hear it as distinguished as the first note. And where the timing is out of time with it, where it's not even in terms of its placement within the subdivision. So this exercise, by doing the inverted rolls, helps you to focus on that second note, so you don't have this, but can really feel that second note. Not only volume-wise, height-wise, but also in terms of the placement, timing-wise, in between the subdivision, okay? So that's the whole point of this exercise. And I'm going to use this to refine my roll timing to continue to work on it. Here we go. 41 beats a minute. We'll play a few reps of this, then we'll stretch and massage, and then we'll just keep going 1 click at a time. this off of here so that way it doesn't cover up that bottom line of sticking. So that last line, make sure it's just nice and even septuplets, sextuplets. While you're going through that, you don't want to hear the sticking change to the inverted roll. Should sound like it's being played all on one hand. Shouldn't hear the sticking. Like here's the inverted roll. You don't want something like this. That's bad. In addition to playing this at full height, you can also practice at lower volume. So I'm going to play this again, but I'm going to play it quieter. Turn down the play long. Here we go. So if you work on this on tap height, it still works on your roll timing. Place each one of the notes. Came in a little early. Talking messes me up. Turns out it's difficult. Inverted roll. Again, no change in the rhythm. When I used to do this with drum lines, we would constantly change the dynamics. So we play like a rep at 3, then at 6, can't talk, and then at 9, then at 12. Man, talking's messing me up today. Now, when you get to the very last line, it is important that there is not a rhythm change here. Just because there's that single right hand to start that inverted roll does not mean that it changes the rhythm. It should sound like 8 counts of just a triplet roll. So it should sound like this. Just the entire time just keeps going. If somebody was looking away, they'd be like, oh, you just played a roll at the end, right? Like, it was technically, but it was inverted. Raise the volume again. Hello, pizza. How much does one of these cost? One of what? What are you talking about? There's a lot of things that might apply to. I'm going to do stretches now. So first thing I'm going to do is stretches the sides of the forearms. Do the palms facing up. Pull in, push through. It's a weird looking stretch, but it feels great. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by how much one of these costs. Do you mean the sticks? Do you mean the drum pad? Do you mean the drum kit? Do you mean the microphone? The drums behind me? No idea. My wife bought them many years ago. And then my drum kit I got as a gift, but it's off camera, so you can't actually see it. But I don't know. $10 billion double dollars. Next, I'm going to stretch the underside of the forearm, so you could do it one at a time like this. You could do it on the wall. The lower you go, the deeper the stretch. Or you could do this one on your pad. This feels good. Ooh. The drum pad, I think like 80 or 90 bucks. I forget. It's off-world. With the laminate, yeah, it's more expensive. The drum pad is great. There's actually, if you go to, I'll just show you. So if you go to here, underneath the home tab, scroll past all the play-alongs, and if you're inside the tips and lessons section, this one has like a review of the drum pad right here. So you can see like what are my thoughts on this one compared to other pads. This is not sponsored or anything. But then there's also for the tenor pad, which is, you know, underneath here. I've actually got 3 of these tenor pads, but good question though. Next stretch that I'm going to do instead of doing the underside is the top side. So right here, we're stretching like that. And the way you could do this is you could do it like this. Or if you do it on the wall, the higher you go, the deeper the stretch. But I'm going to go ahead and do this here. So, Jordan, you don't meet the minimum requirements for maturity. So, you've been banned. Sorry, dude. You could have asked me so many questions that could have helped you better as a performer, and instead you wasted it with that kind of trolling. I'm now stretching the fingers, so thumb to thumb. It goes twice as fast this way. So you start with the larger groupings, so like the forearms move to the hands, move to the fingers. So I'm going to do that with the massaging that I'm about to do in a moment. And then we'll get back into playing through some roll timing stuff. Thank you for the like. ASMR. Ooh, a little one. Doot, 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 doot. Feels good. Now, this stretch and massage routine, if you go past all the thousands of play-alongs and you go to the tips and lessons section, underneath the drumming lessons videos, there's a video that shows you a better camera angle of these like different stretches and massages that I'm doing, as well as some bonus ones that I'm not doing. If you do like traditional grip or rotary motions like Steven's grip, etc. Do I know of any good exercises to improve listening in for the line? Yeah. So literally any of the play-alongs that I've got help out with that. So there's a video, if you go back to here and you scroll down to the tips and lessons, under the drumming lessons playlist, there's a video that specifically talks about why the play-alongs are ideal. It's called Metronomes Are Overrated for Drummers. And so inside of here, I talk about how there's an issue with when you're using a metronome. So let's say you have quarter notes going while you're playing this rhythm. What you end up hearing are the guideposts inside of here. So where's the visual for that? So you hear this alignment, but you are missing all of the stuff that is actually in between there, which is here. So all that red stuff is missing. So if you use a play along, like any of the literal thousands that are on here, that helps with listening in because you're practicing playing along to a computer generated audio that is rhythmically perfect. So like when I'm working through any of these technique exercises, this helps me with listening in. So like if it's bass drummers, what I'd recommend is going to like the marching bass section, and I'd specifically recommend working on the timing playlist at the end, whether you're transitioning from one rhythm to a next, or you're working on your like triplets or your 16th note timing or 8th note timing, whatever. Focus on those while marking time. If you're a snare or tenor drummer, more so focus on like these technique exercises that are inside of here with whatever it is that you want to work on. So if you want to work on roll timing like I am, go into that. If you want to work on stick control, go into that playlist. If you want to work on, I don't know, 3s and 4 strokes, go into that playlist, etc. So just pick the playlist that is like most relevant to the thing that you want to practice, and then practice playing along to that. And that's how you can work on listening into it. In terms of listening in as a full ensemble, one of the things that we would do is when we would warm up, we would have the drumline play so that they're playing. The drumline would play a full measure of 16th notes, alternating into a full measure of double strokes, and then repeat it. So they just keep doing that over and over, looping it. And the center snare would gradually speed up and gradually slow down however they wanted to. So every time it was different. Sometimes it'd take like a minute to get really fast. Sometimes it'd take 20 seconds to get fast, etc. So they would gradually speed up, slow down. And this was forcing everybody to listen into the center snare to try and use them as a reference point. And the legatos that we were doing with the 16th notes and the double strokes, etc., was just to like play something simple that allowed them to focus on listening in. But you could technically do it with like even flam accents, where you could have the center snare slow down and slowly start to speed it up, etc., to work on listening in. Whatever it is that you want to work on, listening in. But we would do that every day as a warm-up basically for our ears in addition to our hands. So using any of these play-alongs will help them practice at home, but as a drumline, the thing that you would do is like exercises like that to help for the whole group listening as opposed to individualized listening on here. There's a reason why I make all these as play-alongs is because you can practice the listening in. And again, that drumming lessons video elaborates on like why that is. And I talk about it inside of there. The metronomes are overrated for drummers. Thank you for the sub. But anyways, let's continue. So last two massages I'm going to do is I'm massaging the backside of the hand with the fingers, and the thumb is massaging the palm. Doot, 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 doot. Do this every day, and you can keep your hands nice and healthy. I've been drumming for almost 30 years, and I almost had to quit a few years into it because of hand issues, because of tight technique, and because I wasn't taking care of my hands. But since switching to a more relaxed technique and doing this hand routine at least once a day, it makes it so that I stay nice and healthy and can keep drumming in my ripe old age. Now, this last massage that I'm doing is base to tip each one of the fingers at least twice. So I'm just doing a quick massage going down the fingers. And then we're going to get back into playing some more roll timing. Now, you notice I'm playing, like, in these technique streams that I do every other day. In between, I do, like, the drum kit, limb independent stuff. But in these technique streams, I'm playing this stuff slow. It's good to play slow. It allows you to hear all the little mistakes to fix. But if you go to my home tab, the section that I'm in is towards the bottom. So it's past the chop stuff, the grid stuff, the limb independent space drum, the cadences, the sight reading. It's in the technique section. You have to click on every one of these headers to actually show all the playlist because there's so much content in here. But inside of the roll timing playlist, this is where I'm working on the exercise for today. And we're going to resume at 45. Now, you notice that there are a bunch of exercises in here, and some of them say members first. There's over 600 of those. They're all scheduled to release for free. So I don't have any of this behind like a paywall or anything. It's just early access. And you get it by clicking that join button, and it's 99 cents. So if you want the early access, that's the cheapest I can make it on YouTube. Otherwise, just wait. I promise it'll come out. It just might be a year and a half from now because, you know, there's like 600 of them. But we're going to resume playing this, and we just went through 40 to 44 beats a minute, so I'm just going to pick up where I just left off at 45. Let me turn on the volume. And I'm going to, again, focus on staying nice and relaxed while playing this. The rolls into the inverted rolls, it's very important to make sure that it sounds the same, even though you're doing a completely different feel for it. Do I have a favorite band? I do not. I like a lot of music. What about you? Do you? Depends on what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes I want Latin and jazz. Sometimes I want rap. I can't talk. Sometimes I want drum and bass. Whatever. You don't really like jazz, but you like to produce it? That's cool. Yeah, I like playing jazz. It's a lot of fun. I like the drumming style. It's fun. Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for the kind words. Stay tuned for more. I was working on a bunch of them last night. You're more of a metal drummer? Yeah, the thing about metal, though, like, I really like, in terms of, like, metal drumming, some people argue it's not metal, but, you know, there's those kinds of conversations exist in every style of music. But, like, Sleep Token, too, very, like, jazz-influenced metal playing that, like, elevates it to a way where you're not just, like, for, like, 5 minutes straight. Like, that's cool and all, but it's like one small slice of what it is possible with percussion. And as a percussionist and not just like a drummer, I like musicality, expressiveness, etc. that you can do, whether it's on one drum or on like a marimba or on timpani or whatever. Like I enjoy more than just like one thing. And my problem with metal, and this is not a critique of anyone or anything, is that it's basically like, let's just play flam drags really fast. Like, imagine if a snare drummer said that. Like, all I'm going to do is just, like, flam drags. And my entire worth as a drummer is, like, how fast can I do this thing? If I can play it, like, really fast, then that means I'm a better drummer, right? No. Like, it's cool. That's one rudiment. But, you know, there's, like, a couple more you could take a look at. So my issue with metal drumming is it's basically that idea where it's just like, hey, how fast can you play singles? Whether it's with your hands or with your feet or whatever. And that to me is just, how do I want to phrase it? I'm trying to be polite here. It's just like an incomplete demonstration of like what is possible on the drums, whether it's on drum kit or on one drum or whatever. So I like metal. I like the technicality involved with metal, but I wish there was more to it than just one thing. And that's totally generalizing. I totally get that. But it's the thing that like beginner and intermediate drummers focus on so much is doing that one thing fast. And like everything else is like thrown out the window in terms of expressiveness or possibilities that you can do on the kit. When there's been like decades of fantastic players who are able to do more than that in different styles and whatnot. Sleep Token is a good band. Yeah. They stand out in the music industry. Yeah, what's cool is like they're actually starting to get like more recognition. So like my wife tried to get some tickets, but they like sold out immediately. And then it was like, well, do you buy from a scalper and then potentially get tickets? And it's like, no. But one day I will likely go to a concert. Maybe. We'll find out. You like the simplicity of how fast can you play? Yeah, and like to each their own. So like this is just one opinion. So like there's nothing wrong with enjoying a specific style. Like this is gonna upset some people, but I can't stand country music because the things that I listen for is not the lyrics. When I listen to music, it's like the drums and everything else that's going on in the background. And it takes me a long time to memorize the lyrics because, like, I don't listen to it. And, like, with a style like country music, the focus is so much on what the person is saying that, like, everything else, like, takes such a far backseat that, to me, it's musically not very interesting. Are there examples of, like, country music that is the opposite of that? Yeah, certainly. And especially if you go into, like, bluegrass, things like that, etc. Like, there's a lot of really cool banjo playing, etc. that are rhythmically very interesting. But if we look at it like another genre that's kind of very heavy on the lyric side of things, rap. Like I actually like rap because of how rhythmic the rap is, even though it's like really focusing on like the lyrics with it. But the background is also rhythmically very interesting. And so for me, like I like certain types of music because of the things that I listen for, and then other people like other things that they listen for. And so this like butting of heads that like people get into, like this genre is better than another, and it's like objectively both of those statements that you're both arguing for are wrong. Like there's like more to it than just like that when it comes to preferences and whatnot. Why, hello on the vertical. You don't like country either? I mean, to each their own. Like, I have a lot of relatives who love country music, but it is not for me. I can't stand it. But I also like trance or EDM or drum and bass or progressive house. You like EDM as well? Nice. Yeah, so like music can serve like the different purposes. So like if I'm working out, then I'm going to listen usually to like rap, some metal, maybe some rock. But if I'm like driving, I really like listening to trance or progressive house because it just like puts me in that like zone. Or if I'm working, like if I write stuff, like whether it's like curriculum things or like scripts for these like YouTube videos, then drum and bass is like the thing that gets me going. And like it has that energy to it, but it's also predictable enough that like I can just kind of tune it out and zone out for it. So like they all have different purposes and I like to listen to all of them. But then if I want to just like sit down and really listen to music and like just enjoy music for music's sake, then maybe I'll pick like Latin or jazz, etc. So yeah, like the simplicity that can come with metal music, that can be very like calming, as odd as that may sound, but that like just like being able to predict, hey, they're probably going to do that again in another minute, like that allows my brain to just kind of like tune out things and just kind of like focus. Probably the ADHD in me. Beatcore, which is 190 techno. Interesting. Yeah, there's a rave style of music that was popularized in the Happy Hardcore CDs and Happy to Be Hardcore, and Happy Hardcore is like the first one. But there's also like another version of that, the Foundation series that had it like kicked up like 40 BPM or whatever from what it was. And that one I really enjoyed listening to. But it was by a record producer company that went under, and so like it went under before all the streaming services like put up all their music everywhere, and so like I can't find that music, and it gets like copyright strikes on like YouTube, so I can't even find it on there to listen to it. And all the CDs that I had of like all of them, they melted in the visor because Arizona like melts anything in your car, and so I lost every one of those CDs, and like I can't find it. I need to like find like a torrent or something, because like I can't legally purchase it anywhere. Like I've tried. Hello. I'd like to be able to listen to it again. Let's lower the height a little bit. memory is syncing to the Happy Hardcore Foundation CDs. This came out when I was in like high school. I'll show you in a second. Oops. So this exercise, whoops, it works on a variety of things, but one of the problems that a lot of like beginner and intermediate drummers will have is they will play rolls and they'll sound like this, where like the second note is low and the second note, the timing is off, where it's not even between each one of the subdivisions. So, like if this is like the subdivision, the diddle might come in early, it might come in late, etc. So you might play a roll like that or like that, as opposed to rhythmically precise, perfectly in between it. So this exercise helps with that. So the first line, what it's doing by playing a triplet roll, okay, just a normal triplet roll. But we take that exact same rhythm on the second line and we do an inverted version of that. So there's a single right hand at the start of this followed by a roll. So it's not a tap roll like that. It's where you actually end with a double right as a release. What this is doing is it's taking the roll and putting it so the second note of the diddle is on the subdivision in terms of like that, as opposed to triplet, 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 triplet. By having this single right hand, triplet, 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 you're actually getting that second note on the subdivision where you would normally feel that triplet roll. And that makes it so that not only are you intentionally focusing on that more, but it allows you to fix that second note being low. And it also allows you to fix it being out of time. And so this 4-2-1 variation of it, by doing 4-2-1, it's making it so you're going roll for 4 counts, inverted roll for 4 counts, then you do 2 counts, 2 counts inverted, and then 1 count of each off the right, off the left, and then 1 count of each inverted off the right, off the left. And this final line right here at the end is it's taking a roll, and then you go right into an inverted roll, not a tap roll, but an inverted roll. And so rhythmically it stays the same. And so you want to hear just an even rhythm the entire time while going through this without changing the quality of the roll. So this is very helpful for working on extended rolls, whether it's 4 counts, etc. But there's also, if you go to my home tab of YouTube and you scroll back down in the technique section where you'll find this exercise, if you go to any of these roll exercises at the end, like triplet diddle variations or 16th note diddle variations, if you look inside of here, you'll notice that they all have like triplet diddle with 2 counts, triplet diddle with 2 counts, but it's inverted triplet diddle. And then same thing for triplet diddle with 4 counts, and then inverted triplet diddle with 4 counts. So in each one of these inverted variations, it's putting the diddle, displacing it, so it's the exact same rhythm, but it's putting it so that the second note of the beat is actually on the subdivision. And so if you can play through this exercise, whether you're playing it fast or through slow, it really helps with that second note of the diddle whenever you're working on this. So that's what I'm working on while working on this roll timing stuff. And I'm playing through it slow, not because like I can't play a roll fast or anything, but because I'm trying to refine that interpretation and refine the quality of the playing, the evenness across all of it. You're still learning traditional grip. So if you go to the home tab and then scroll all the way down, wah! That's loud. if you scroll all the way down to the tips and lessons section, there's over 16 hours of like tips in here to help you with your drumming, but and several of them talk about traditional grip. But inside of here, under the drumming lessons playlist, there's a video that's specific to traditional grip, which is how to hold traditional grip. It's less than 3 minutes, and it shows you everything that I look for with myself and with the students who are doing traditional grip. So I'd start there. But good questions. Cool. Let's go back into the technique stuff, and we'll do a few more reps of this. You're very welcome. Roll timing variations. That's where I was at. And I'm doing this first one. There's more. There's like tap roll timing variations. There's triplet check variations. And then there's roll interpretation stuff. But those are currently scheduled to release. So only it's early access, basically. Okay, so you're welcome. Let's see. I'm trying to think with like how much time there is while going through this. You know, let me actually show you. So I'm going to go back here. And I'm just going to do like a demonstration of what triplet diddle sounds like. So let's go back to here. I'm going to do 4-count version. And we'll do triplet diddle with 4 counts. And while doing this, I'm going to do the normal version, and then I'll show you the inverted version. So I'm going to go into the timestamps of the description so that way I can pick the specific BPM. And we'll play at like a nice, comfortable 120. And then I'll show you the inverted version of it. Okay, so sorry, I turned it down too quiet. So now I'm going to play the exact same thing. Rhythmically, it's going to sound the same thing, as long as I don't mess up. But I'm going to go to the inverted triplet diddle. Thank you for the follow on Twitch. All these resources, by the way, are on YouTube. But if you click the panel underneath this video on Twitch, it takes you to where you'll find all these resources. What was it, 120? Let's see if I can play it at 120. Okay, so the inverted version is going to be the same rhythms, but now I'm changing the sticking as long as I remember to do it. Okay, so exact same rhythms, but you'll notice the sticking is different because it's displaced by that single isolated hand followed by the double stroke. So it's a little weird when you get to the very last line because you're doing a double for the release and then same thing, a double for the release. So it goes right to be able to exit out of that. But there's a reason why I've got all these different like triplet diddle variations with the inverted variations inside of here. Same thing for the 16th notes, etc. It's to help with that second note, timing of the diddle, etc. How long have I been playing? For almost 30 years. And I have a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in music education. Cool. So that's the basics of like roll timing and the inverted. Let's chop out. So for the last few minutes, I like to do this at the end of the stream, just to have some fun. Let's do a shopping spree. So I'm going to go into the chop section. And then inside of the shopping spree, there's a bunch of old shopping sprees and some newer ones, etc. Trying to see which one I want to play. I think I did... Well, hello. I think I did the Velvet Knights one last time. So this one's interesting because it's actually in 5/4. It's a great exercise to learn if you haven't done it yet. But I'm going to play a different one because I'm pretty sure I did that one last time. So let's do another classic one. This is Blue Devils 1999. It's got a really interesting measure right here where it's got a book report into a slurred putida. So that one is like the classic. Like, what? First time I heard that, I was like, what is going on here? But this is a great exercise to learn if you want to just like chop out for fun. So let's start off slow, then we'll go up by like tens, and then until we get to the point where my arms burst into flames. Who knows? Maybe it'll burst into flames right now. Stay tuned. Today's episode of Hit Drum. That was weird. There's like a weird sensation that I'm getting right here in my arm, and I'm trying to figure out what is going on with that. It was like yesterday was heavy day with like the workouts, and I'm feeling it right there and I'm trying to figure out if it's the accents or the taps or what is causing that. Anyways, let's try this again. TMI probably. Letting you know what's going on in my brain. Haven't felt that sensation. Here we go. There it is. So it's on the left-hand accents on some of them. On those, yeah. So weird. I can't like not think about it now. All right, let's keep going faster. Focus. $120. Click. These variations of the flam drags where it's 5 notes are called float flam drags, by the way. Same thing with if you do that with cheeses like this. And if you did that with the flam 5s, it'd also be a float 5. But they change it there. Tyler, good morning. Good morning. 1:30. Welcome to Hit Drum Fast. You're writing a flub part? Any advice? To balance the ensemble overall? What's the purpose of your flub line? According to the members of the ensemble. Not according to you, but according to the members of the ensemble. And then I'll answer. What do they think? Training for another section. This year they will likely be training for snare. Which is like the common purpose that you'd hear for it. So the reason why I asked that, even though I was 95% sure that that's what you were going to say, the reason why I asked that is because use that as a frame to do the opposite in moments. So a flub line is often emphasizing what is already being played by the rest of the ensemble, whether they're emphasizing the hits or playing like the check pattern, etc. If you can do something that musically is essentially the counterpoint to that, so like if you have like in the snare part, what would happen if the flubs played? Then you'd have that 3/4 feel, etc. So like that's just like an example of it. It doesn't need to be anything super complicated, but if they're just playing like a watered down version of the snare book versus if they are providing emphasis where it's needed and then rhythmic counterpoint where it makes sense to do that, and you can highlight their contribution musically, that will make it so that it's not just viewed as a training ground for another section. So the flub line is typically viewed as that, and that's fine. That might be that still its intended purpose of it. But musically speaking, you can make it more interesting for them and make it so they actually have a unique voice by literally having a unique voice in it. So instead of just having the soprano, the tenor, and the bass, you can also have the flubs playing something interesting musically within that and make it a 4-part ensemble as opposed to a 3-part that is just being emphasized by this like ancillary, like extra little thing that is reinforcing what the 3 parts are doing. So give them some kind of a musical voice. Another way of doing that is like, you know how you might have like a snare solo and then like they move away and the tenors come in and then they move away and then the basses come in. Well, what about if the flubs did something as well? Like you could highlight them drill-wise, you could highlight them music-wise by literally giving them their own solo, or you can make them do like some kind of a rhythmic counterpoint to whatever it is that you're doing there. And that doesn't make sense all the time. Like I'm not saying like they're always like playing the opposite of what everybody else is doing or something like that. No. Like it's when it makes sense to do that. Sometimes they're there for emphasis, sometimes they're there for the counterpoint, etc. So like when I would write parts, like I distinctly think of those like 3 voices, the soprano, the tenor, the bass. We didn't have a flub line, but there were times where they were all 3 playing together, 2 of them were playing together, or they're all like playing different parts from each other. And so like it's okay to do unisons. Like think of like old school cadets. Like the like snare, tenor, and bass line would be all ramming the exact same thing. It's just like on different drums, etc. And then there are other times where they'd be playing completely different stuff. Many ways to write, but it's a good question. And I'm glad you're thinking through that. A pet peeve of mine is like how much a lot of composers, non-percussionist composers, just think that they can get away with copying and pasting for the drum parts. And like as a percussionist, it just meant so much to me when I actually had some kind of a unique contribution to the ensemble, as opposed to just like there were so many like timpani or accessory percussion stuff that I'd play specifically in orchestra where you'd like rest for 200 measures and then like ding, and like that was your entire contribution to the piece. And I wish I was exaggerating on that, but that was literally what I did in multiple high school pieces. But then there would be like some like wind ensemble pieces where like the marimba part was like nobody else was playing that kind of melody. Like I was the only one doing that, or rhythmically like the snare was doing other stuff. So the more composers can actually be intentional with what is going on, then that's the better. But that's my plea to like wind and brass composers who have no idea what they're doing for percussionists. Either hire somebody or learn how to do it right. But just like copying and pasting ostinato patterns is very boring. It's like just saying, well, the tuba is all they can do is whole notes. Have you ever listened to Patrick Sheridan play the tuba? He can play Flight of the Bumblebee on a single breath. He can also play a Metallica part where he plays the bass part while he sings the guitar part into the tuba, so it's 2 different parts simultaneously. So expand beyond the basics. And it's not saying you're doing that, by the way, Tyler. I'm just saying like composers in general. Sorry, I'm just reading through the comments. But it's like, it's so far away, it's like hard for me to actually read it. Oh, yikes. Just take them off the part. It's not important anyways. Yeah, no. How about we don't do that? That's like the you've heard me rant about this before, but the idea of like the score being more important than the individuals that you're working with, where it's like the ensemble's like needs far outweigh you as an individual, and it's like, no, you're there to teach. Like, that is literally your job. Your job is not to get trophies. Like, I hate to break it to you, even if you got principals that are like, yeah, we really like it because this allows us to like promote our ensemble, etc. But like the spoiled nature that a lot of high school directors get into, where they work with the 1%ers, where like they're the AP kids who are like the top 1%, and then they just like, sorry, you didn't start in 5th grade, so therefore you can't be in this ensemble. Like, I don't know. That, trying to think of how to politely say it, but it's like that in I'm gonna avoid that word. I was getting entitled, but like it's yeah, I have unkind words to say about that kind of teaching. I used to be that way. Like when I first started teaching, like I was really focused on, well, what did the judge say? What was their score? Was it better than last time? Like when I first got out of high school, and then I was like, as I just got better at teaching and realized, like, one, all the inequalities involved with teaching and performing, but two, like, we're there to work with individuals. Like, that's why I went into teaching to begin with. Like, I don't know. I just stopped caring about that. Moved away from that. To each their own, though. They had it. That's funny. Yeah, do your job. And by the way, like the flubs is like a kind of like almost a sort of leaning towards a middle ground, where it's like, hey, I get it, you're not at that level yet. Maybe you're inexperienced, etc. And then this is an opportunity for you to perform. But like to treat them as like the quote that you have in there, where they're not important anyways, like that's the problem with it. Like, no, they're all important, and they're all there to like learn how to make music, and like some people just have better opportunities for that than others. Like, I could afford private lessons. I could afford like the time that it took, the hours that I spent every day, like practicing, versus like friends who wanted to be good and like they had to work multiple jobs and they couldn't do that because they had to go work at like the cell phone store, and whereas I went home and like practiced for hours. Hello from the Philippines. Why, welcome. There's got to be space for them too, musically and like physically, drill wise. Woo! Too fast. So let's go faster. I want to completely fall apart. I'm going to drink water. I'm buying myself some time. You try to make it worth it for them to be there. Good. There needs to be more instruction like that. That was not the norm when I was teaching drumline at all. I hope it's becoming more of the norm now. There's a lot of positive things that I'm seeing as an outsider, like in the DCI space, WGI space, compared to when I was in it. There's a lot more toxicity from instructors. Stuff that I will never repeat on stream because it's just like, whoa, why did you say that? But I'm glad to see that the space is getting more educators who like actually know how to teach rather than just people who know how to hit drum fast and say mean things. But that's my own bias. Let's attempt it. 170. Will it sound good? Probably not. Will I have fun? Yeah. Flawless. That was the alternative ending. I don't have a play along for that one, but you know, maybe I'll write it out for you one day. Until then, you'll just have to learn that one by rote. Good morning to you. Ohayo gozaimasu. You like the way it's evolved? Yeah, I do too, but again, because I'm an outsider, like, it's one of those, like, there's, if you get into, like, musicology and ethnographic research, or even, like, qualitative, there's, like, emic and etic perspectives, like the insider and outsider perspectives. And so, like, as somebody who was the insider, it's interesting now shifting to the outsider and, like, looking at it and seeing, like, what has changed from an outside perspective. And there's so far a lot of positive stuff. Maybe in 20 years, they'll be retrospectively realize we were doing something terrible. Yes, most definitely. Like, I had like former students who would come back to the ensembles that I worked at. So, like, some of the schools I was there for a few years, and like the students that I taught the first year that I was there, if they were like seniors and then they graduate and they came back like to the 5th year that I was there, they'd be like, why aren't we doing this when I was in the ensemble? And like, that to me was like a sign of success. That evolution was like a sign of progress, where it's like, whenever they like were longing to be able to do the new things that I was doing, like, it was just that constant iteration and going, well, what worked like either this past season and what can I do to improve it for the next season? Or if it was like, what worked in this last week, or even this rehearsal, and what can I do next time? And that constant just trying to reflect on what's not going good, what is going good, what can I do to continue to improve, etc. Like, that evolution, not just from a performance standpoint or a writing standpoint, but from a pedagogical standpoint, like, how am I teaching things differently? Like, if you look at the last year that I was working with an ensemble, I used an approach called constructivism, where it was like the students were coming up with the questions that they were asking by reflecting on their own playing, and then going, what could we do to be able to make this better? And then my role was to go, okay, well, what kind of exercises might help with that? And then ask them as an ensemble, hey, snare line, can you come up with like 3 exercises that would help you be able to work on this passage that is not sounding clean yet? And then if they get stuck, then I might like nudge them in the right direction, or I might show them how to do something. But it's very different than the very first year when I was teaching, where it was like, I'm doing everything 100% top down, where I'm the one who is got all the knowledge, and I'm the one who is telling you everything. And the reason why I shifted away from that was because I was just constantly evolving over time, and like figuring out what was working and what didn't work, and looking less at the what can I do in this moment versus how can I teach them to be better, like when I'm no longer here, like several years from now. Like, if they were to reflect on what they learned, could they still continue to progress as like a musician, or are they going to be 100% reliant on me as an instructor to like, no, I'm here to tell you everything that you need to do and to improve. So like that last year that I was teaching drumline, I was really emphasizing that like as much as possible, not just because of the evolution, but because I knew that was going to be my last year. Like midway through the season, I was like, I can't work on a doctorate and like full-time and teach the drumline. It's just taking too much time. So like I told the director, like, hey, this is going to be my last season here, really enjoying it, but I can't do this. Like, it's too hard to do the research and this. And so I tried to talk as little as possible and tried to get the students to reflect on those things, because I didn't even know if they're going to have an instructor the next year, and I wanted them to be prepared for that. But it just like, it also just aligned with that gradual change of thinking about the long term to help students to be able to teach themselves for when you're not there. So like, same thing with when I was teaching computer science classes, like years later after that, where like a student would ask me a question and I would often respond with a question to help them to be able to figure out like the the problem that they're having or whatever, and they'd be like, why don't you just like teach me how to do it? And be like, well, what's going to happen if I'm at a conference presenting and there's a substitute here and the substitute doesn't know how to do computer science? Like, what would you do then? Or what would you do if you're at home and you run into the same bug? I'm trying to teach you to be able to think long term, to be able to like solve those problems on your own, etc. Do I have a favorite drum corps? This last year, I mean, there are so many good groups, but like, I'm super happy that Boston like finally got the Sanford. Like they tore it up. I saw them in the lot in Arizona live, and like they were just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else who was there in terms of like their sound quality and consistency and the way they approached like just the motion into the drum, etc. So really happy for them. But like I'm super happy for all the groups. Like it's cool to see what was like somebody who might get this is just random numbers. Somebody who might get like 10th place in drums like this past year may have gotten like in the top 5 like 10, 20 years ago in terms of like the level of clarity. In terms of like the amount of notes that people are playing, like if you look at Blue Devils like 1990s, like they've been thrown down for decades, but like the level of clarity that groups are achieving is often greater than what other groups have been doing in terms of like the early season cleanliness that some of the groups achieved this year was at the level of like some groups what they would get in the like lot on like the finals week or whatever. Boston with a perfect drum score. Yeah, no, I hear you. I totally agree. Yeah, they tore it up. I mean, they're playing notes too. Like they weren't playing an easy book. Same thing with Vanguard. They're playing difficult stuff. Blue Coats as well. And then Blue Devils, like that snare break that people gave them flack for is probably one of the hardest things that I can think of cleaning. Like they had an Achel from like 60 to 200 beats a minute with add-ins. Like, yeah, no wonder it's gonna take all season for it to sound good because that's probably one of the hardest things you could write. It's absurd. Sorry, I'm just reading through it. You like to push that down to empower? Yeah, if I were to go back and be caption head again, I would do it differently. I was basically like a snare tech who wrote the book and who would also teach the other sections. But like, even though I taught privately to some of the techs that were working for me, and like mentored them one-on-one, I would do much more focusing on the mindset and the pedagogy. The PhD in music education was like literally teaching you how to teach teachers. Like that, it's called teacher education. That was like the whole point. Uh-oh. My internet went out for a second. Nice. It might be back. So anyways, what I was saying is like the doctorate in music education, the whole point of that was like teacher education. So it's being able to teach teachers how to teach and how to be able to do research and whatnot. And so like now I'd feel so much more comfortable if I were to go back into the caption head role and like be able to teach pedagogy. But I didn't do enough of that. There's a lot of things that like I would do differently if I were to go back in time and like tech or be a caption head or whatever. Just like the things that I've learned over the years. But again, that's normal. You should have people come back and be like, why didn't we do this when I was in the ensemble? So what you're doing today, Tyler, like as a caption head, is going to be very different than what you do 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And you will look back on it and go, oh, why did I do that? Why did I focus on that? Why didn't I do A, B, or C that I'm doing now? And like, try not to beat yourself up over it. Like for me with writing music, like I've been writing music since the early 2000s, like 2001, maybe even 2000. Like I started on Finale, and what I wrote back then was terrible. Like I have a friend of mine who he has a PhD in music composition, and I have a T-shirt that has like his first thing he ever wrote for high school. We did percussion ensemble, and when I was like teaching that percussion program, he was a year younger than me, so he was a senior when I was the caption head there. And he composed a piece for the percussion ensemble, and like that thing that he wrote is like nowhere near the level of what he wrote for his like doctoral recital, where it was like stuff that he wrote, just that constant evolution of like getting better. And I think people don't understand who they're comparing themselves to and when they're comparing themselves to. So they'll see somebody who's like at the level that they're aspiring to be at, and they'll compare themselves to that and go, well, why am I not at that level yet? And it's like, well, what you need to do is like compare yourself to when they were your age and like how you're doing, and like figure out what the steps were that they took to be able to get to that. So like with that composition example, like if my friend had like compared himself to other people who had like a doctorate in music composition at that time when he first wrote his very first ensemble for percussion ensemble, it's like it's night and day. It's not even gonna be close. But he eventually got there because he just kept chipping away at it, kept trying to improve. That's the important thing. And that can be the discouraging thing if you don't realize that context, that meta, that overall arc, that like training arc that took to be able to get to that level as a composer, as a performer, as an educator. Like when I first started teaching, I was terrible. Where I am right now is significantly better, and where I hope to be 20 years from now should be significantly better than what I am right now, whether it's me as a performer, as an educator, as a human being, whatever. Like I hope that we look back years ago and go, oh, why do we do it that way? There's so many things that I would do differently, and that's normal. You're getting imposter syndrome? I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I have some videos that have already come out that talk about that more under the drumming tips, like the Q&A stuff. One of them's about expectations. I forget. It's somewhere in there. But okay, so I have a weird career in that, like, I went and got 3 degrees in music education, and then when I finished all my coursework, I started teaching computer science education, which I have no like background in. Like, I don't have any degrees in computer science education, and so in the computer science area, I got to a point where I'm trying to not sound arrogant with it. I'm just going to objectively state things that happened without like value trying to just attach to it. But I got into the rooms where we were like designing the curriculum for like the entire state of Wyoming, or we were creating I created resources that were used by millions of students and teachers around the world. Like I was actually asked to go teach in like Mongolia for, I think it was like 12 days or something like that. Super cool. But like having been in conversations with people who are objectively at the top of the field, because I was in the same room with them and creating the same things with them in both computer science education and in music education, in private, and even on the computer science education podcast that I used to do, which you can actually like find in here. When I interview a lot of them, either off camera or like in the actual episode, they talk about also having the imposter syndrome. And it's like people who are like objectively like, you're the best person or most knowledgeable person in the world on that thing, and you still feel like an imposter. And what ends up happening is, I actually got a comment the other day, somebody describing it as like the T type of knowledge, where you have like a breadth of knowledge of what is going on in the field, but you also have that depth. So like T being like this, that depth of understanding in one small area of that. And that is like such a really interesting framing of it. It's how I felt when I got the doctorate, where like I went and objectively dove deeper than anybody had previously on the subject area of my dissertation, went all the way down here, while also simultaneously learning all the things that I don't know yet, and knowing that like there's somebody else who's over here on this topic who's dove that deep on that thing. So like, do I really know anything about this? Or there's somebody over here, there's somebody on the other side, etc. So I say all this to say that I think that's just a normal part of developing expertise is if you have a realistic understanding of like what you know in relation to what other people know, you will always feel like there's so much more to learn, because there is. Like it's just a normal part of developing expertise, because you're able to compare yourself to other people who are those experts in all those other things that you are not, but it's still related to the main thing that you are an expert on. And so you have to be able to find a way to not only utilize your expertise, but as a caption head, you have to figure out how to utilize the expertise of the other people who are on your staff that are helping the students and whatnot. So while you might set the overall direction or the meta, like they are there to help support that with their own expertise. And it's totally okay to be like, hey, front ensemble person, you are a way better marimbist than I ever will be. So like, we're going to utilize that expertise that you've got. But I am way better tenor player, in your case, Tyler, than like they will ever be, etc. So like that is normal. And if you can think of the bigger picture and think about how the things connect and develop that cohesion between all those different levels of expertise, that's where you get that synchronicity that can happen, or that synergy, if you want to go with like the corporate buzz terms, that like can really set an ensemble apart from all the other ones, where like they have all the pieces in place, but there's that lack of that cohesion and that stability and that connection between them all, where it's just not cohesive enough. But that's easier said than done. Like it's obviously very difficult, and I did not do as good a job back when I was a caption head as I would hope I would do now, because I have a better understanding of that, having worked in those different environments. So don't hold yourself to the standard of like, I have to get this right now, but more like, I'm going to just keep getting better. There is no end point with this where you're going to be like, cool, I've solved what it means to be a caption head. You can't get any higher level than this. It's over 9,000. You can't get any higher than that. That's not going to happen. You just got to keep like iterating on it, whether it's like per rehearsal, per weekend, per season, per decade. Like those are all things that you can continue to do. These are good questions, by the way. I'm definitely going to put these questions like in this drumming tips one, because there's like, I think it would be helpful for more people to do that. That's funny. I just got splashed in the face. Headshot. Your percussion education is better than what you experienced in the late 70s and 80s? Yeah, like, I hope so. I hope it continues to improve. There's things that students are doing today that I'm like, wow, that, like, elementary school band is literally outperforming the high school. I'll be vague with this because I don't want to seem like it's trash talking, but, like, I've been involved with districts where like some of the elementary schools like outperformed the middle school and the high schools in the local area, and it's cool to see that like the quality of instruction just continue to improve, and a lot of it is research based, which is why I'm really interested in the research. But let's see, any tips on dealing with trying to make difficult decisions for people? Yeah. That's so hard. I've had to do that with drumline auditions. I've had to do that with like staff members. Like I've had like there's a staff member that I let go. I've had to do that with employees, like whether or not hiring them or not. Like when I was the director of education and research, like had a big say in like who would be hired or not when I was on the hiring committees. Yeah, it's difficult because like you know that the decisions that you make can have a profound impact on them in the long run. If there's any way to do like a rather than like a binary of like you either made it or you didn't, but like a in the middle in some of those scenarios, like since we're talking about drumline, that can help. So like having, since you're mentioning having like the flub line, that can be a way of, hey, you didn't make snare, You're not going to be like on the rack in auxiliary. You're kind of in between. So let's put you on an instrument where you can just continue to develop the abilities that you need to be able to make snare for next year. But if you can have like a B line, that's an option. Like a lot of like drum corps, WGI groups, they'll have like, here's our A line, like Blue Devils A, that's the top group. Then we have the B line. Then we even have the C line. Where like eventually it gets like from here's an adult to like here's like a 5-year-old with a snare drum. Like having that spread really helps out that ensemble and those ensembles because there's all those different steps in between rather than that binary of you either made it or you did not make it. So any way that you can help support them, whether it's, hey, we're going to have a B group, or maybe that's too much. Maybe it's, hey, we're going to have preparation camps throughout the year, spread throughout, so that way, like once a quarter or once a month, it basically simulates the beeline approach where maybe it's only for an hour or two, but prospective members who want to make it the next year can come in and play with the members who are currently on the line and basically experience what it's like to have like a clinic or a rehearsal or audition prep or whatever at some kind of a regular basis throughout the year. So that way they get more check-in points, more points for feedback, and more opportunities to stay engaged with the ensemble rather than just like, well, I went to the audition, I didn't make it, and now I have to wait a whole year before I can get any kind of feedback. But if there's any moments for that, even if it's just like, hey, our snare tech is going to have a sectional where anyone is allowed to show up, including people who are currently on the drumline and people who want to make it on the drumline, and we're just going to refine basics. Like, even if that's only for like an hour or something or a couple of hours, that's really helpful for those people who didn't make the line. And it's certainly not a bad idea for people who are like on the drumline to just sit there and refine some basics. Like, we could always use some more time on that. It's not like you just have to like rep the show stuff 24/7 or do like the difficult stuff like the chop exercises. Like taking that time out of rehearsal to do those things to build for the long term rather than just focusing on like the current book. Again, as the caption ed, you have to think of that long term. Like when I was teaching the percussion programs at the schools that I was previously at, I had to think of what was the freshman going to learn going through freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year by the time they leave that 4-year process. But then when I was teaching at the elementary schools and the K-8 school, like it was literally like 7 to 9 years that you have to think of what do you want them to be able to learn from when they come in as a kindergartner all the way to when they graduate in either 6th grade or in 8th grade and like move on to another program, whether it was the music classes or the computer science classes, but having that long-term perspective as opposed to what a lot of teachers will get into where it's like a semester perspective or maybe a year-long perspective where you're taking a course with them as like an educator who sees that full grade span or sees like a full program span of like multiple years, a few years working with students. Look at that long term. The more you can do that, the more beneficial it'll be for the students that you're working with. Just start another A-class group under your A-class group. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do that. But the more check-in points, the more opportunities for them, the better. And it doesn't even have to be a competitive thing. Like you could just do like literally just like the Blue Devils Entertainment group. Like they have the ability to just go and perform, whether it's like it could be a mixture of like A group people and like people on this like B group or whatever you want to call it, where they're just like performing publicly and they're playing easier stuff, like maybe as more of like just a parade thing. Or it could be take it as like a clinic approach, etc. Like there's so many different avenues that you could take that could benefit the students in different ways. But I ranted a bunch. Really good questions. I like it. I like talking about this stuff. I actually got a question on a comment on a YouTube short that I'm still thinking through because there's so many nuances to it. And so as like a preview, I'll either talk about it tomorrow or the following day. But the question is basically like, can you still be an effective educator when the student can out-chop you? Like if they can objectively like play faster or better than you, what can you do as an educator to be able to help them? And like, is that a possibility or do they just need to go on to somebody else? And I've actually been on both ends of that where I've been that student, and then where I've like been the educator who's like the student knows more than I do on a subject area. Like when I was a doctoral dissertation supervisor for Boston University, the person that I supervised, like he developed more of an expertise in the area that he was doing for his dissertation than I had, but like being able to still support through that process requires like different ways of teaching than what people typically see. So I'm still thinking through like the nuances of how I want to talk about that, because like there's the cognitive stuff, like the expertise like with that I just mentioned, but then there's also like I've had some professors who I could outplay, like, but they could outteach me, and I learned so much from them. Like they couldn't, like one of them couldn't play because he got like an injury when he was younger, and like his hands just, he couldn't do it. But like I learned so much from him. Rick Rubin can't play instruments or use technology yet. Yet he's a good producer. Yeah, I agree. And welcome, by the way. There's a lot of really cool examples of that. So I'm trying to, like, I'm debating how long I'm going to want to talk about that particular topic, because it's a really cool question. And I want to think through some of those nuances, because, yeah, there's a lot there. Anyways, speaking of a lot there, I went like 30 minutes over. To the 3/4 swung over straight patterns, and then I'll review some of the easier stuff. So we'll do that. Yeah, exactly, Tyler. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'll be talking about. I actually have like a list of notes of like potential things to discuss because yeah, you can totally be an effective educator with that. Anyways, I've been rambling a bunch. If you want to find like the edited versions of these ramblings, whenever I get these like wonderful questions that I get from the live streams and in the comments and whatnot, I edit them and put them into this 16 hours of drumming Q&A. So inside of here is where you can find a bunch of answers to a lot of really cool questions that people have answered. And there's over 100 videos in here, 16 hours of content. But if you want the like play-alongs and stuff that I was practicing to earlier, just click on the header for any one of these sections, whether it's the chop stuff, the grid stuff, the technique exercises. Any one of these headers that you click on will like expand and show you all the playlists. But also know that if you see any of the videos that are listed as members first, they're all scheduled to release for free. So I do appreciate the people who have signed up for membership. It is 100% optional, but there's like 600-ish of them that are members first. So if you see like any of these, the members first ones, either just wait or just the join button is how you can get the access. It's 99 cents, which is the cheapest that I can make it on YouTube. Sorry, I read through the comments. That's awesome. Yeah, no, you definitely did. That's great. When I was younger, I used to think like, well, if a student knows more than me, then I have not evolved enough. I have like failed. But that was when I was younger. Now I definitely see that's impossible. Like students will always know something more than you do. Again, going back to that like T understanding of like the depth of understanding. It's just a matter of like, do you acknowledge when a student knows something that you don't, or knows more about, or can do something better than you can. Because there's also, well, yeah, I'll talk about it more the other day. I'm about to go into that rant. But anyways, if you like these free resources, just share them with somebody else. And if you don't like these resources, just share them with an enemy. They'll be like, no, thousands of free drumming resources. How dare you? I'm going to get ready for Ghost of Yote. It'll probably be about 15 or so minutes for me to tear that down and get ready. But I appreciate the questions. You're very welcome, Tyler. Seriously, really good questions, great topics. I look forward to editing these, as well as working on that music I'm going to do later on today. But I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and we'll be back on the Mile drumming for about an hour or longer because I rant, and I'm going to get ready for gaming.